Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to get to introduce you to one of my incredible one-on-one clients today. Her name is Malini, and I am going to let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Sure. Hi, Brooke. Hi, everybody. So my name is Malini Sarma, and I am an independence coach. I'm very, very new to the coaching business. I'm also a podcaster, and I'm a classically trained Indian dancer. But there are different roles that I played in my life, besides being a sister, daughter, at one point, wife, mother, my most recent grandmother, and a not so recent is divorced. So these are all different roles that I played and continue to play and have a huge impact in my life. And I am very excited to be a part of the coaching industry because I am finally getting to meet incredible women that are on the same page as me and understand so much about things that I thought that nobody else did. The other part that I have a hard time dealing with, and I'm realizing that I'm not the only one, is besides being a woman and woman of color, South Asian, immigrant, there are so many parts of it that I thought I was the only person. But as I start to talk to other women and other women of color, I'm realizing I'm in a very safe space, and I'm very, very grateful to have met all these incredible women, including you, Brooke. Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited you are on the podcast today, and I'm so excited for everyone to hear your journey, specifically in your mindset of really claiming the coach identity and where you're headed with your coaching business, because also you own a dance school. So I want to highlight that too, right? We're going to talk about that. So you have multiple businesses. And so the journey with that, I just can't wait for everyone to hear that story. Also, yes, very recent grandmother, you all who are listening might hear the baby crying in the background. She told me that she's not happy today, so we might hear a little baby cry in the background. Okay, so to start, Malini, I would love for you to give everyone kind of a synopsis of where your headspace was and where you were logistically before joining coaching, and what was the straw that broke the camel's back, or what was the catalyst for you to dive in?
So I almost, when I think about it, I think I have multiple lives. I've had so many different journeys. So if those of you who follow human design, I'm a manifesting generator. And if you know what your profile is, manifesting generators tend to have 20-year cycles. Like everything that you learn the first 20 years applies to the next 20. I was so happy when I figured that out, because I'm like, oh, okay, everything makes perfect sense now. So my first 20 years, as a coming to this country, I came to this country almost 35 years ago. And I mean, I didn't know anything or anybody. I mean, I was already married at the time and went to school, had babies, raised my kids. And, I would always work 9 to 5. I've always worked in the corporate world, but I also started learning dance after I moved here when my daughter started learning. And that was just my way of, making sure that I was committing to the culture, connection to the culture, because you're so far away from home. So you learn to cope. Most people, I'm a Generation Xer. So most people who've come here at that time, they just did whatever that they had to in order to survive and to just make sure you don't lose your roots and all of that. So my kids actually have been my biggest teachers, because they very easily saddle both cultures. They're able to be as American as well as as Indian as possible. Like this weekend is Diwali, they're very excited to celebrate. So everything was hunky-dory until I realized at one point, when I think I consider myself a late bloomer. I realized that there was a lot of things, unfulfilled desires, that I didn't have a chance to, it didn't come to fruition because I kind of put my life on hold for the sake of my family. And I think A lot of people do that, especially who are immigrants, because sacrifice is another name for love, is what we were conditioned to do.
Mm.
But when you're in this country and you basically are taught that you can do anything you want, you can be anybody you want, and you can make as much money as you want as long as you work hard. You know that, and I truly believed in that philosophy. So fast forward, about 5 years ago, I was like, it was just everybody was kids are grown, everybody's doing their own thing, and suddenly you realize you're like, what about me? Who's
Mm.
asking about me? What am I going to do now? I did everything for the family, but now it's my turn. And it was a struggle because that's not how everybody looks at it. They're like, "Ah, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be take care of your family. That's your number one role." So it was a struggle, but then I made my very first in 2017. I made my very first solo trip to Lisbon because I was like, I need to go on vacation on my own to do the things that I want to do. And that, I think, started the catalyst. Um, to start, I'm like, wait a minute, I can do things on my own. I don't need anybody's permission. I don't, I work hard, I make money. So why can't I do all these things? Um, and I think it came to a point in my life too. I think, my ex and I, we were like at crossroads. We wanted very different things from life, and he wanted to do his thing and I wanted to do my thing. And I think we just came to an understanding. We're like, let's just wait till the kids are settled and let's just do our own thing. So it worked out really good for both of us. I mean, I remember it was within 60 days from the time we started, the paperwork, we were done. And we had everything was clear cut. We'd all this, and we're still very, we were very amicable. We still hang out and talk because the kids and our grandkids, right? So it's just like just another phase of life. But that was all on the outside. On the inside, oh lordy lord, there was so much to deal with because I never knew that I could actually say things out loud. It was like almost like a no-no to talk about things because you don't air your dirty laundry in public, right? Everything has to be hush hush, and nobody should know your problems and da 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 da. It was such a I honestly think I am so glad I am in a time right now with this technology where I have access and I am able to see people from all over the world, because that literally opened up my eyes. I'm like, I'm not the only one. And I'm not the only one like from my country or like in this place. It's like people all over the world. It's like women all over the world. And, you know, I think for me, the biggest thing was I've always worked. So it was never a big deal. But I think not having access to your own money kind of irritated me. I didn't think that it was a big deal because before it's like, oh, the men always take care of the stuff, the money part, and the women take care of the kitchen and everything. I hate cooking. But I like to eat. I'm just like, I would rather do other things. Um, when it came to a situation where I couldn't access my own money, I started questioning my systems. I'm like, why am I doing this? And of course, it was such a scary situation because nobody talks about these things. I never grew
Right.
up talking about money. It was all like, you don't talk about this. You just tell me what you want and we'll get it for you. You don't tell people you're in debt. You don't talk about how much money you make. It's always like, so having a money conversation was very triggering for me. It took a lot of guts and, multiple conversations and yells and yelling and screaming and fighting and everything before finally I was able to get my own bank account and I had access to my money. But oh my gosh, Brooke, it may not have been a big thing for other people, but for me, it was
Yeah.
it was life changing
Yeah.
because I was the only person that I'm talking to all of my coworkers and they're like, yeah, just go to the ATM. I'm like, wait, you don't have to ask anybody. I'm like, why? It's my money. I make hard.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you know what? That's right. So it was such an eye opener. And after that, of course, the floodgates open, and then after I was like, okay, can't stop me now, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was a huge one for me, just not having access to my own money. And it wasn't because I wanted to spend it on something. I needed money to send to my mom. And I
Mhm.
couldn't take it out because I had to ask permission. We had to figure out all these other things. And it just kind of like, why am I asking permission? I mean, we're all working. So, I think that was the big one.
Mhm.
After that, I think, as things progressed and we decided to live our separate lives and I started living on my own, I remember the one occasion when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like move, and I want to always move near close to the ocean. I want to get a job where you're not gonna work remote. I remember my kids at one point saying, you always say that, you don't really do anything. Oh, that made me mad. And I was like, watch me.
Mhm.
2 weeks. It only took me 2 weeks. Figured out all my crap, got a new job, packed my bags, moved to the East Coast. And it was like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah. So, but then that opened a whole new thing because then I was on a timeline. I was like, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, which is great when you have a timeline. But what I didn't realize was all the mindset stuff that I hadn't figured out because I didn't
Mhm.
know how to deal with. I'm like, oh shit, now what?
Right.
I did all the things that I said I was going to do. How to take care of myself? How do I know I'm
Right.
doing okay? How do I
Right.
know that I don't want to ever have to go back and ask somebody for money? And
Mhm.
it did come to a point in time where I didn't have enough money for rent, not because of that I spent it all. I was just paranoid because I have never had to look at that. I never had to worry about that. So I was like, okay, how will I make next month's rent? How I had a job. It's not like I didn't have a job, but it is just the panic because you don't know if the money's going to last.
Mhm.
And nobody showed you a system that works.
Right. And for you, it was having to develop a relationship with money for the first time in your life when it came to the intimacy of managing it in your own
Yes.
bank accounts, doing your own numbers, all of that stuff. That was a new system for you. And so what I want to talk about later is like the actual logistics of the systems and stuff we set up, but
Mm-hmm.
of course something like that happened, right? Because this was the first time, right? And I also want to I'm so glad that you're on the podcast because there are so many people who feel like, oh, it's too late, or I should know this by now, or all of this stuff. And it's like, y'all, there's no right time for any of this, right? And there's
Right.
so many reasons why you weren't taught, you didn't have access, you didn't know how to build that relationship, right? It's never too late, and we'll talk about why, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that you're sharing all of that.
Thank you. Actually, the other thing I also wanted to bring up is one of the other things that really triggered me was there were a lot of other my friends who are the same age as me who lost their husband, either for
Mm,
however, like either like a heart attack or passed away in some accidents, whatever.
mhm,
And watching them struggle because they were like, I don't know what to do now. I don't have the passwords. I don't know what all accounts. What do these mean?
mm,
And that just freaked me out because I'm like, how do you not know? But then I was like, wait a minute, I'm just 1 year or 2 years, ahead of them. I was in that same boat, not too long ago. So who am I to say that? But it was only when you are going through that when you realize that you have absolutely no clue and there's nobody there who can help you because you're the
right.
only person who can help yourself. That
Mm,
is, oh, that is scary shit. I'm telling you, it's like you're like, oh shit, now what? So when you talk
mhm.
about aha moments, they ain't aha moments for me. They're all oh shit moments for me, honestly. But when you realize that you have to take care of yourself. I mean, and then that's when my friends were reaching out to me. I was like, okay, let's figure this out. I was like, how do you get a credit card because you don't have any credit history? Then how do you get a car? How do you open a bank account? How do you know what you got to put where? How much do you put? What's the 401k? Where do you want to put this money? How much can you make? You're already missed out. Oh my God, I've lost some. I'm like, listen, don't listen to any of that. Just start putting money away. So take
Yeah.
care of your stuff. Don't have any debt. Pay off your credit card bills, whatever, if you can.
Mhm.
It's just it's very, very overwhelming. But
Right.
once you kind of get a handle of it, then you're like, please, I
Right.
got this. You ask
Yeah.
me, I'll tell you exactly. Yeah. But
So
it's
one of
it's huge. It's huge.
Mhm. So one of the first things that we started with when we started coaching was the systems, right? And the action plans, because you have goals to become work optional, right? Like leave your job at some point, and growing your both of your businesses, right? And also being able to manage your money in a way that was much simpler than the spreadsheet budget system, right? That we're all fed. And so we started with the strategy. So I want to start there when we're kind of recounting your story. What do you remember about the strategy, logistics, money flow? Let's start with your personal side and then we'll move into your business. What do you remember about setting that stuff up? What felt easy? What was confusing? What brought up emotional stuff? What do you remember about that time?
So I can tell you honestly, when I remember when we first started, I
Mhm.
was just paranoid because I was always afraid that I wouldn't have enough.
Mhm.
Like, what if I run out of money? Because I gotta pay rent and I gotta pay utilities, and what if I, run out of money? And and I had a one checking account, I had another one that I was paying rent on, another one that I was paying for savings, another one was I was paying for all these different, things that I wanted, travel thing. And I thought that was the greatest thing because I'm like, okay, if I want to know how much money I have to travel, I could just go look over there. But and I thought that was really great. But and I remember when we first talked about it, you're like, no, you don't need so many. You just need like three, an expenses, an incoming one, and a savings, and that's it. And I was like, no, no, no. I need more than that because what if? And you're like, no, you don't, because you can use buckets, and I use Ally, and thank God for that. It just made it a lot easier to have buckets in. And I was not convinced. I remember you telling me, you just need to put this chunk of money. I'm like, no, no, no. I want to put money in every week. And you're like, you don't need to. And I'm like, yes, I do. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah, because
remember
I
not feeling
remember,
comfortable about it at all.
yeah, it was you were putting in like weekly amounts, right? It had the energy of squirreling it away, and
Right.
the higher amount of consistency, like it was happening every week rather than once a month, or like just when your paychecks were hitting. And so it was that energy of like, I just need to make sure my hands are on it. We're doing it every single week, right? That's where
Right.
your safety was coming from,
Right.
which that had to be the first domino to fall, because you're moving into a world where you're not going to get that biweekly paycheck. So it's developing
Exactly.
then the safety in something else.
Right. And I remember I was not happy about that. I was like, oh shit. And what if then she's going to say this? And what if next that? Da, 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 da. But I'm telling you, now I do not even have to worry because I don't even look at it. It's like, did my rent go? Okay, cool. Everything is automated. It goes in, the money goes in and it's all taken care of. And I'm like, oh, okay, good to know. All right, let's
Mhm.
keep moving on. Let's get focused on other things. It just completely opened up an entire, it was like a time warp. It's like so much, I was spending so much time and worrying about it. And the
Mhm.
moment I did this, I was like, oh boom, done. Now let's focus on bigger things. So it
Yeah.
was a game changer. I didn't realize it because I was like, I need to see my money every week. I need to know that I got it there. I think, but that, like you said, it was a scarcity mindset and the worry.
Mhm.
But the moment the money was in there and if things were happening, I was like, oh, okay. It was so easy, like you said. I didn't believe
Yeah.
you at the beginning, but I believe
They
you
never do.
now.
So the fear that you had, right, of the what if I run out? What if it's not enough? What do you feel like solved that for you, or brought you ease in that question, or answered that question for you?
I think knowing my biggest fear was, going into negative, right?
Mm,
That was my thing. So what if I don't have enough? But I think the way it worked and the way I was moving the money and the amounts and everything, it was all like it's all in the numbers. I mean,
yeah.
it's basically it's a numbers game. If you know all and your rents are consistent, you know what your utilities are. I mean, it's like, oh, okay. So the moment you figure out the numbers, it's all like no biggie.
Yeah. And I want to note here, the things that you said were when you know your expenses, right?
Mhm.
And you do have a biweekly paycheck, but you are moving into that fluctuating income, right? As a business owner. And you do have fluctuating income with your dance school right now. And so I want to like clock here that getting consistent doesn't mean you have to have consistent income for this to work. It's understanding your numbers, having that full awareness. You
Right.
don't have to be like micromanaging it to feel like I'm good, I'm solid. You don't need a consistent paycheck to feel I'm good, I'm solid.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your business systems, right? Because we worked a lot on your business money flow, right? Because when people have businesses, right, we need to separate business and personal finances. And so
Mhm.
you have two separate money flows. So talk to me about what you remember about working on your business money flow, your business financial systems.
Oh, it was such a mess. It was such a mess. Because I think that also came from a place of fear and not not owning my identity. It was so I run a dance. I've been teaching dance for 25 years, but I never monetized it for the longest time because I always felt, oh, it's art, it's culture, it's not supposed to be, it's a sacred art form, whatever. And I know that's when you think about it, it's like, why wouldn't you? Right. But it was just like I had to get out of that mindset in order to finally, because I remember at one time my very first coach told me, she goes, it's a business. I'm like, no, 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 it's
Mhm.
not. And she goes, yes, it is. If you're making money off of it, it's a business. It was such a hard concept for me because I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, am I like betraying the art form because I'm charging money? Right. I mean, it
Mhm.
almost felt like that. And I think this last year I gotten really good at kind of stepping away from that and looking at it as a business, but also a very what do you call a very I would call it a um like special, right? It's like so different. Nobody else can do it the way I'm doing it.
Right.
And what I bring to the table and what I teach these kids. I mean, and so when I talk about independence, whether it's independence in finances, independence in travel, independence in dance, independence in life, it all up the same philosophies apply. So I come from I bring so much of experience and so much of knowledge that these people have never seen.
Mhm.
And it's like I was so stunned when I found out that, and in fact, last year was the first year that I actually, like last December was the first that I actually inaugurated my school. So
Mhm.
it was such a huge deal for me because I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm actually doing this. But what I didn't realize that none of these people have ever seen anything like this. And they're so enamored by it and they're like in awe of this. And I was like, I took it so much for granted, right?
Mhm.
So that mindset shift from going to be like not paying attention to all of that to now actually being a business owner is like, what can I provide? What value can I provide? Because these kids can, and the parents can, they get so much from it, right?
Right.
As especially as young kids, of Indian origin who were born and brought up in this country who don't have access to that kind of knowledge or art form, and they don't have to go all the way to India to learn it. They could learn it right here and the traditional way, because my guru has also been doing this for like 75 years. So I come
Mhm.
from a lineage of artists that have been teaching this for so long. So I had to get over that hump about there's nothing wrong with charging money. In fact, if you ask my daughter, she goes, you should charge more. I know you keep telling you got to raise your prices. And I'm like, yes, yes, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that was a big thing, just getting over the hump of realizing this is a business. My time is valuable and I have to charge in order to provide value. Otherwise, I'm doing, like you were saying, squirreling away,
Yeah.
like a 10 buck here and a 10 buck there. And then it's like you're working so much and getting burnt out, and you're not able to provide the value that you want because you are nickel and diming everything.
Exactly.
And I realized that when I nickel and dime, the parents respond with nickel and dime.
Mm.
So when I say, this is how we're going to do it, these are the prices. This is when we start. This is when we finish. This is what you're going to learn. This is the show. Da da da. Okay. And I'm like, wait, what? It took
Mhm.
me a while to get there,
Yeah.
but I'm finally seeing that. And I think next year I'm excited to like do more things, but I think the door is slowly opening. So it's happening. But I
Right.
think this has been a very uh growth year for me because it was very hard for me to do that. And there was a lot of pushback. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. But then I'm like, no,
Mhm.
hey, you know what? Everything prices are going up everywhere. I can't do this stuff for free.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, can you do this for free? I'm like, nope, sorry.
Yeah. And what's so incredible about what you did is when we were working on your money systems, it was like we went full hog with all kinds of systems. So it was like, okay, we're going to get the business money flow. Then we're going to systemize your scheduling. We're going to decide
Right.
what your semesters are because one of your values is travel and being able to have that solo you time. And so
Hmm.
being able for you to plan that travel, right, and have your semesters lined out so you knew travel was coming, and then be able to lean into those systems where everyone is paid up front, the money flow is working, your travel is set. You did
Yep.
all of that at once. So it's so impressive that you were able to, right, move through all of those and set up all those systems. And one of the things I remember us talking about when it came to scheduling and setting up like payments is we were talking about like the YMCA swim lessons,
Right, right, right,
right? And how the YMCA is like, yeah, if you don't pay, you're not in class. Also,
right.
here's the schedule. You make it or you don't. Price is the same. Like
Hmm.
that's the facts. And the amount of value that you provide in your dance school versus like a YMCA
See
swim
it.
class,
Right,
drastically different, right? And it's
right,
like, how are you not charging 10 times what a YMCA swim class? How
right.
are you not even more systemized, right? So when we compared those, I remember that kind of clicking of like, yeah, the YMCA can chill. We're not working around the YMCA, right? The YMCA will work around us.
Right. In fact, and when I remember when you brought that up, I was like, oh, yeah, I want them to build their schedule based on my schedule.
Mhm.
And that's why having that scheduling done ahead of time, because I always tell them ahead of time, like, you got programs coming up, this is what's happening. We already know the festivals that are happening, we already know the dates, we know everything. So I'm like, be ready, be ready, be ready. And I think uh I never thought that the ability for a student to perform was so much bigger. Like, it was such a big deal. I just kind
Mhm.
of took it for granted. But now, after having said, having get the schedule out, and I'm like, okay, we're having these things coming up in the program, in the next quarter. These are the things that are happening. We're going to be performing here, here, and here. And I just have to say, it's like, do you need to perform? You need to let me know your availability. We'll have press. You guys are going to be at all these places. You're going to be guys going to be famous because you're going to be on YouTube, and
Mhm.
you're going to be like, boom, boom, boom. Everybody just
Yeah.
shows up. And I was like, I've been doing this wrong. I'm looking at it from my point of view, where I'm like, I just want to learn. I'm like, no, these kids do want to learn. But when you
Yeah.
put the marketing twist about what do you get from learning from me, because you have this exposure to the entire world, suddenly everybody's like, oh my God, I want to learn from you. It was funny. One of the other ladies like, you're a legitimate teacher. And I was like, I never thought about me like that, but thank you. You're a
Yeah.
professional. I'm like, well, considering I've been dancing for this long and I have performed all over the world, yeah, I guess I am
Yeah.
a professional. It was just mind-boggling to just accept that.
Right. And hearing too that all of these systems and boundaries and things that you were setting up, yes, were to benefit you, but also it's of such high value to the students and the parents where, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, they know the schedule. So they can plan their vacations around
Yep,
having the blessing of getting to be a part of your dance studio. They also know that like they pay up front and then they don't have to think about the money for the whole semester. They get all of these
exactly.
performances. When you have systems in place, you're able to give them more opportunities. You have more bandwidth to show up as the teacher that they need. Like as big-hearted creatives like you are, like so many of the people listening to this podcast are, all of these things that you're putting in place monetarily and systems and all of that, it's not just to benefit you, right? It is to
Right.
benefit the people that you're serving as well.
Yeah. In fact, one of the parents actually told me, she's like, it's so good to know ahead of time so I can budget for the year.
Oh,
Right, because they're
love
like, oh,
that.
right, and they're like, oh, we need to find out, okay, this is how much we're going to pay for dance for the year, so I can keep that money aside, because we go to all these other things. And I'm like, July is my birthday month, so I'm like, July is off. I ain't working. I'm
Yes.
not teaching in July. I'm going to be traveling. And that's what I did this year too. And so
Yeah.
everybody knows. I said in August, we'll have workshops, in September, because it's like I don't want to clash with Christmas and compete with all of that because you have school programs and everything. I'm like, you know what? Let's just end the year early so I get 3 weeks off in December. We'll start again in January. And I love it because I love having the entire month of July off because I'm already planning my trips. So this works
Yes.
out wonderful.
I love it. So I want to switch gears here and I want to talk about the fact that you hit your FIRE number. So for
Yes.
those of you listening who don't know what the FIRE number is, it stands for Financial Independence Retire Early or Financial Independence Relax Early. This basically means you're work optional, that your invested money in your retirement accounts and your other investment accounts are basically paying you in compound interest what you need to live year after year after year. You don't have to work for a dime another day in your life. That's what the FIRE number is. And Malini, you hit your FIRE number. I want you to share what your initial thoughts were and your journey with like coming to terms with that fact.
So when I found out about all this, when I started living on my own and I had no idea what any of this was. I was just thinking about my 401k because that's one thing that I always contribute to every year. And I was like, okay, how much do I need to do it this year? Once you hit 50, then once you hit 55, there's all these different numbers. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Can I still have enough money to pay for rent? I'm still thinking small at this point. So I think after the divorce, I think, because of I had to sell my house and all these things, that suddenly there was an influx of money. And it was really scary because I'm like, I have not seen this much money in my account ever. Because one, I never looked at it before. It didn't bother me. I didn't care too much about it. But also it's like, oh shit, what do I do now? That's literally my first thought. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? You prepare your whole life to get to that. Oh, when I hit my 401k, when I hit my FIRE number, when I do that, I hit it way before I thought I would hit it. Because I was so sure it'll take me another 10 years. And next thing you know, I'm like, was literally my thing. I was like, what do I do now? And then it was like, who do I talk to about this?
Yeah.
That was the scariest thing. I know I remember you telling me, you hit your FIRE number. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what to do about it.
We've been having that conversation since we started working together because, and this is where we were starting to talk about this at the beginning of the episode of like really leaning into the fact that like, you're good. This energy of like, I'm good, I'm safe. Like I could quit or be fired tomorrow and nothing would happen. I could burn my dance studio and my coaching business down to the ground and I'd still be able to live and travel and do my thing.
Yep.
And like that amount of ease, like that level of relaxation and stress relief that gives you is very jarring as a human being living in America, having worked your whole life, being a mom, like all that stuff. Like it's so hard to like internalize that in your body. So we've done a lot of like emotional and mindset work about that
I'm
too. So
still
can you
working
speak
through
a little?
that.
Yeah. Can you
I
speak a
am
little on it?
Sure. So I think because you are conditioned to think that you have to work your whole life, you know, it's just a very, and you hear about, oh, people, they win lotteries and then they lose it all the next day, so here I'm thinking like, oh shit, what if everything just go, what if I lose it all tomorrow, and am I going to go back to, I have to go get a job because I don't have enough money? That it's like literally one extreme to the other. There's no middle ground. But I think as I get more and more comfortable, and this is where the mindset work comes in. It has nothing to do with the actual money. I think it is the acceptance of that you're okay. Not only that, you're totally worth it. And you work damn hard to get here, and you don't have to apologize to anyone or give thanks to, it's not like it's not your money. It is your money. You worked bloody hard for this. You earned it. It's yours. This is my money. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you ask most women, especially women of color, they would be like, an immigrant woman, they're like, oh, I can't say that out loud. That sounds so
Yeah.
selfish. That's not mine. Oh my God. How could I say that? There were so many other people who did it. I couldn't have done it. Yeah, that's all true. But if you hadn't worked, you wouldn't have gotten it in the first place. It's not like you got it for free, right? I think, and that mindset takes a while to sit with you. I mean, I know I'm still working on it because it's it's just like, I don't have to work. You mean I don't have to go to work tomorrow? For real? I mean,
Yeah.
who tells you that?
Yeah.
You don't, who tells you when you're a kid, nobody says, oh, you don't have to work, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Whoever says that?
Right.
But my grandbaby will have a trust fund, and she will probably, like, yeah, grandma, glamma, as I call myself,
I
yeah.
love that.
But I'm just saying, it takes a while for you to sit, for it to sit in your body.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, once that shift happens, I don't think I can ever go back. I'm thinking, ooh, and my kids make fun of me. I'm like, I should just, just charter a private jet. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe the next trip I make, why not? After all, it's like, so of course, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's a different level.
Mhm.
Suddenly I'm not nickel and diming, and I'm like, please, let's not waste time talking about this. If you can't do it, you don't do it. If you can't make it, that's fine. If you can't
Yeah.
be part of this class, that's okay. It's like, I don't have time. I am not fighting to get every single person into my class or
Yeah.
every single person to be my client. I'm like, if you are meant to be with me, it will happen,
Right.
because you understand the value that I bring to the table, and you will see the transformation because you work with me, because
Yeah.
I bring all this experience, and I can see it in myself. It's like I just carry myself differently.
Yeah.
I notice that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, before I would like, no, nobody cares. I'm like, oh yeah, people are watching.
Yeah. And it's been really fun to watch too, the timeline of when you were thinking you were going to leave your job slowly inch back as that
Yes.
energy of like, I'm safe, I'm good has been ingraining, like the timeline would
I
keep
remember
pushing
you
it
telling
back.
me that. She goes, I remember you telling me that it's going to happen. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. And
Yeah.
then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't need to wait that long, please. I can just work. I'm like, so now it's actually kind of scary, because now I'm like, my job is so boring. Maybe I should just quit. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, no, no. Let's wait for them to fire me. And then realize I'm not doing any
Right.
work. I was like, no, no, I can't do that. But it's like I'm in
Yeah.
this,
And
but
I'm in my
yeah,
notes and I'm like right on schedule. Yep.
yeah.
I
I know I
love
didn't
that.
believe you when you told me that, but you were right.
Yeah.
Something clicks in your brain, and things start to like shift. And
Yeah.
now I'm not thinking about the job. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm doing everything that I have to, that I need to,
Mhm.
but I have all these different plans and dreams and all of that I have to work on, that only I
Yeah.
can work on. And
Yeah.
nobody else will get it except me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to share that this energy shift that you've had and that you are like continuing to go deeper into of like, I'm safe, I'm good, that can be cultivated even if you haven't hit your fire number, right? Like we were cultivating that even when you didn't believe you had actually hit your fire number, right? And so
Right.
I also want to separate the two of like, you now have the money in the bank and that thought still feels hard, but like the thought is separate from the money in the bank and you can cultivate that thought at any time.
I know. I remember you telling me this too. It's like the life problem and the business problem. It's
Mhm.
like you don't need to have all these things. You just need to have the belief that you can do it.
Yeah.
And I think at some level that's a lot more powerful than when you have the money, because then you kind of get a
Mhm.
little complacent. You're like, "Ah, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna worry about it because it's there," which I guess you earned that right. But when you have that belief in you, other people watching are like, of course she's going to get it. Of
Mhm.
course she's going to start a dance school. Of course she's going to be traveling the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, oh, we knew you were going to do it. So I think you're right that it is more about the energy level, and it's also more about what you believe in yourself,
Yeah.
because they always say, right, if you want it that bad, even the universe will conspire to make sure it happens. Nobody
Yeah.
can stop you from doing that.
Right.
So it's a very powerful feeling. That's what they say. The mind is very powerful. Your thoughts are extremely powerful.
Mhm.
If you decide that you're going to do something, it'll happen.
Right. So along that line, I would love for you to share a few of your wins or biggest aha moments, like things that clicked mindset wise or logistical wins, things like that. I would love for you to share a few that really stick out to you from our past
Sure.
time together.
So I think the big one was simplifying my banking,
Mm.
because I honestly did not believe that that would work. But it just opened up. I know you laugh now.
I love it so much.
But it just opened up an entire chunk of time that I was wasting worrying about stuff. And I think that was huge, because then I could actually focus on investing or like bigger things, that is long-term stuff versus my regular day to day. Um, and of course, hitting my fire number was huge. But now I think learning to accept that, that's the next step for me. But I think that was also, I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, because
Mm.
everybody I watched on Instagram, whatever, they were either like younger, like
Mm.
35, 20s, and they're 35 and 4. I'm like, yeah, I'm like so much older than them. What's the big deal? But it is a big deal, because now I don't have to wait another 10, 15 years or whatever. I can just do anything I want today while I have the health and I have the energy to do all the things that I want to do. It's amazing.
Mhm. Mhm.
um and the other thing I never realized was I could do things in my own timeline.
Mm.
Like you know, taking the month of July off was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to teach in July? Oh, okay. That was just big. Because it's funny. I mean, and people make fun of me, but the first thing I do at the beginning of the year is mark my travel. I work everything else around that. I'm like, first I
Mhm.
book my travel, mark my travel dates. I'm like, I'm not available this day, this day, this day, this day. And then I book everything else around it. So I think
Yeah.
having my own timeline was huge, because I
Mhm.
wasn't stressing about it. And then I'd already saved up, I'd already planned for it, I'd already figured it out. I think that was a big one. And then I written down a couple things. And then making decisions without judgment.
Mm.
I think that was also huge, because I always, every time I said, I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to think? They're going to say I'm this, I'm that, or she's like this, she's like that. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm thinking all these things, but I don't know what's going on in their lives. They probably have other things going on. So how do
Right.
you know why they're decided not to come, not to join, not to do whatever? That has nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
And in the end, it always works out, because the universe always has you back and everything always works out for the best. So I'm like, if they don't show up, thank God. If they do show
Mhm.
up, that's amazing.
Mhm.
But I think I can say my biggest win, and that's for me personally, because that's just the kind of nature of person that I am, being able to say no.
Yeah.
Because I've always, oh no, let's figure something out. I'm like, sorry, nope, not available. Nope, can't work it. Nope, I'm not here. Sorry. And I'm like, oh dang, it feels really good.
Yeah, right. I wish that there was like, I wish we had a clip of like our first coaching call together, or our first sales call together, because the confidence that you have in like, I'm going to make my own decisions. I'm going to say no. I'm going to decide what I want. We are traveling. We are raising our rates. We are doing these things. Like all of that confident energy and how you're speaking about these decisions is just so different, especially around the money things. And it's such a testament to not just the logistical work that you've put in, like the time you spent to implement these systems and things, when even when you were feeling crazy resistance, you fought so hard against your brain and against the
Right.
feelings, right? And like feeling through your feelings. I remember there was a week where your homework was to just cry when you feel like you needed to cry, even if it was inconvenient. And that was your homework for the week, right? And
I
like
know. That was so
diving all
hard.
the way in. Yeah.
That
And
was
and
so hard.
where you are now is such a huge testament to that work that you've done, right? In our time together.
I'm still working through a lot of this stuff, but I remember you were saying, what is your biggest aha moment? I call them
Mhm.
oh shit moments, because it was never, oh my God, I figured it. I'm like, oh crap, now what do I do? I honestly, that was how it was for me. So,
Yeah.
like, um, I for the longest time, and I think even now now I'm conscious about it, but for the longest time, I always operated from a place of fear because of like, oh my God, things are going to fall apart. I'm going to get evicted. Someone's going to say something. I'm going to get, all these, when you're an immigrant, it's like, you don't want to get into trouble. So you're always
Right.
kind of being on the down low. You don't want to rock the boat or anything.
Mhm.
So you're like, don't tell anybody, don't say anything. My kids are the opposite. Like, of course you got to tell people. How else are they going to help you? Like, no, 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 don't tell anyone. But now I operate from, I'm okay. I'm safe. I can figure it out. I
Mhm.
think I'm going to be okay. I
Yeah.
think that is so huge because when I think about it, I traveled on my own. I moved cross country on my own. I figured I got my own job. I negotiated a 45% increase in salary on my own. All these
Mhm.
things that nobody tells you. But when you look at it from, at the 50,000 feet, I was like, dang, girl, look at you. You did all these things, you
Yeah.
know? So you got to be your number one champion. So I
Getting
think,
comfortable bragging on yourself too. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I'm like, and the other thing is I tend to mix the life problem with the business problem, thinking
Mhm.
that I got to do really good at one to be good at the other, but they're not related
Yeah.
because you're resourceful and you'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the issue is, you're a problem solver. You'll find out, you'll figure
Yeah.
out a solution. So whether you have
Yeah.
a job or you don't have a job, whether you have a business or you don't have a business, whether you have money or you don't have money. And I'm like, I've been through all of them.
Yeah.
I've been through a place where I didn't have a job and I didn't know what to do. And I figured it out. I didn't know what to do, when I didn't have a business, I created one.
Mhm.
And when I didn't have money, I figured out how to get myself out without feeling shame
Mhm.
because I knew that I could figure it out. So I
Yeah.
think that is because of the mindset work.
Yeah.
The money part of it is a solution, I guess, or you can say it's a byproduct of it all.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the mindset work is so huge.
Yeah.
So
And it
huge.
became so clear as we were implementing very specific money strategies and creating very
Yes.
specific money goals, the emotional work and the mindset work that came up where it was like, oh,
Ooh,
I'm feeling
yes.
that. Like I remember you would have those times where you're like, oh, there it is. There's the
Yeah.
work I need to do. So it
Yeah.
like was a North Star to like, where do we need to point the effort in the
Yeah.
mindset work, in the thought
And
work?
I never ever thought that the mindset work. I mean, I knew it. Yeah, you got to work on it because how can you do stuff if you don't believe in it? But when you start working with the money, it's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I mean, that's what keeps coming up. That's when I realized that you have to do the mindset work in everything you do. It
Yeah.
doesn't just come. I mean, you can have a checklist and you can do all these things because that's what I even the coaching thing I did, but I could sense that I'm like, I'm missing something. It's because I'm keeping a part of me separate because I didn't
Yeah.
want to be messy with the emotions. But life is messy. It's all about
Yeah.
emotions.
Right.
And I never connected the two. But now it just feels like, oh, it's okay to be mad and throw a tantrum.
Mhm.
I can go and like, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm out of here. Or
Yeah.
like, don't talk to me right now. That was always like, you're not allowed to be mad. You always have to be happy. And so that giving yourself permission to feel everything that you're feeling, it's just huge.
Mhm. It is so huge. Thank you for sharing all of that, Malini. As we end the episode today, can you tell people where they can find you if they want to hear more about your story, learn more about your dance school?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at Malini Sarma, MalinisSarma. And I do have a website, same thing, malinisarma.com. And you can always DM me and I'll always talk to Brooke and she'll find me and let me know.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much for coming on and sharing your story, sharing everything you did today, Malini. I'm sure so many people are going to be so happy that they were able to listen in as well.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. I didn't think I had a story when you convinced me that I did.
I was
So,
like, are you kidding? Yes, of course you do. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.